This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Hey guys, Big Paul here today with another question and answer. I had a ton of people hit me up with questions after I put out my request for questions. So I'm not going to get to every question that was on the list. I will get to some of them today. So I apologize if I don't get to yours. I'll probably break this up into a couple sessions. So I can't get to everyone, but I will do my best to get to the ones that I felt that were most relevant. And, I really appreciate you guys hitting me with a question. So first one I have today, my thoughts on, this one's from Andrew, my thoughts on Cedric McMillan's passing. And my thoughts on the new wave of deaths that are happening in the industry. He said it seems like just the start. So a few things, by all accounts, Cedric was a great guy. I didn't know him personally, but I know some people that were very close to him, and he was supposed to be just a top-notch dude. From what I have heard, and I don't know how much of this is true, that he was a very responsible PED user, and that he had gotten very sick with the virus that we shall not name, in the last year and a half or so, and was almost dead, from what I understand. I don't know the exact details. I don't want to speculate, but he had alluded to that he was in very bad shape, and then he'd had some cardiovascular damage, some damage to his heart. And he guest posed here locally at a show last fall, and I know some people that were there that said that when he was posing, he was getting out of breath. And he spoke at the end of the guest posing and talked about his near-death experience that he had, and that his doctor had advised him not to press forward, that he should take a break from bodybuilding, but he was pressing forward anyway. That we do crazy things for the sake of bodybuilding, which was kind of ominous when you look back on it now. You can find a video on YouTube, but at this point, it's just all speculation. Cedric deserves better than speculation at this point. So once all the facts come out, if there's an autopsy released, well, I'll review it. But from what I had heard, that he had a heart attack. And I go back to this, and I keep pounding this home with people, that it seems to be cardiovascular disease. That when we look at all the people that have died in the past year, George Peterson, Sean Roden, there's been some guys that have had some major cardiovascular issues. I know Antoine Vaillant had some cardiovascular issues. Cardiovascular disease and diseases of the cardiovascular system are what kills bodybuilders primarily. Kidney disease is another one, but most guys, it's cardiovascular disease. And I don't think a lot of bodybuilders pay attention to it. And a lot of it could be easily preventable by compound choice, managing your diet, making sure your lipids are in check, and managing your blood pressure. That is probably the simplest and easiest thing that you can do to prevent a cardiovascular event from happening. We know now that androgens stimulate, anabolic steroids stimulate the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, and there has been a direct correlation between stimulation of the RAAS system in cardiovascular events, in left ventricular hypertrophy and heart attacks. So controlling that, it would think would make sense, and something as simple as taking a blood pressure medicine would go a long way. And I know a lot of guys don't do that. I talk to dudes all the time, and they for whatever reason, they'll take a shit ton of Tren and Anadrol and shit like that, but they draw the line at taking a statin or taking a blood pressure medicine. It just makes absolutely no sense to me. I see it all the time. They're worried about losing gains from taking those things, and it's nonsensical to me. it's kind of like riding a motorcycle without a helmet and then wondering why, when you get a wreck, that you split your skull open. To me, it just makes no sense. But to each his own. Whatever you want to do, you do. But I think it's really, really unwise to not manage your blood pressure while you're taking PEDs. That's pretty much it on that one. So that's the lesson that we can take from here, is that, higher doses come with more risk. Also, studies have shown that oral steroids seem to be worse on the cardiovascular system. They skew your lipids. They seem to stimulate the RAS more than injectables do, from what I have seen. And they cause more blood pressure issues. So why take orals? Why take harsh compounds? Why not manage your blood pressure? Why not get a blood pressure cuff to keep an eye on it? And a lot of these things probably could be prevented just from those simple steps. Next questions. Vladimir asked me, what are your thoughts on DBOL? Well, Vlad, you are obviously new around here. Anyone who's talked to me and knows me knows that I think DBOL is absolute trash. It's ironic that we just talked about orals and poor health outcomes. There are some orals that you use for specific outcomes in targeted situations. So, for example, Anadrol for force production, peaking for a powerlifting or strongman event. There's really nothing that compares to Anadrol for force production. Things like Winstrol or Halotestin for finishing touches on contest prep. But those are situations where you're only using them for a few weeks. I can think of nothing that you can accomplish with DBOL that you can't do with a safer injectable. And DBOL has additional risk and additional side effects that with no additional benefit. So why, to me, logically, why take something that comes with additional risk, additional side effects with no additional benefits that you can't achieve from something safer? Makes no sense. So I think DBOL is the trashiest of trash. Orals, I think it's probably the worst oral, in my opinion. Makes you look like shit, bloats you up, converts to methyl estradiol, which is essentially estrogen on steroids, and is poor on your cardiovascular health. And there's nothing you can't do with DBOL that you couldn't do with something else like equipoise. It's just the way it is. So stay away from the DBOL. DBOL is trash. All right, what do we got here for the next question? Rocks in the field. I think that's what it says. 122, some weird username like that. How do you structure your last meal of the day if it is post-workout? I don't change how my post-workout meal is structured no matter when it is. If it's the middle of the day, end of the day, first thing in the morning, it's the same. Post-workout meal is going to be high carbohydrates, low fats, keep the fats as close to zero as possible. And then your typical serving of protein. I usually keep my protein servings the same throughout the meals. Personally, on my diet, I do 50 grams of protein per each meal. That's plenty. That's 300 grams of protein a day. I'm talking about direct protein. I don't count protein from plant sources. I am only counting protein from animal sources. I try to get my highest carb meal for the day in at post-workout. That is an opportunity to refill glycogen. I keep my carbohydrates to starchy carbohydrates or things that readily convert to glycogen. Typically just chicken and rice is easy. Sometimes I'll do some breakfast cereal or something like that post-workout if I'm in a pinch. But most of the time it's just chicken and rice. It's really that simple. And depending on your body weight, I try to get somewhere between 100 and 150 grams of carbohydrates in post-workouts. All right. Next question from IKC589. At what point do you have a client start scheduling in more junk meals in the off season? If somebody's basically never able to get more than 10 to 12% above their stage weight in peak off season and just stays lean, Is it okay to start adding stuff like burgers, ice cream, and multiple times a week during the off-season pushing phase? I occasionally have guys that are just hard gainers that can't seem to get bigger. Most often I have found out that the dudes that think they're hard gainers aren't actually hard gainers. They just have low appetites. They don't eat a lot. And they have a hard time getting the food down, and they're not being truthful about the amount of food that they're eating. There are occasionally some guys that can just eat an endless amount of food and never gain weight. I have seen that. Yeah, so usually what we'll do in a situation like that, we'll push the carbs as high as we can get away with it. I know, like working with Justin, what he'll have guys do 3 high days per week, where you do a high carbohydrate day or something like 700 to 1,000 grams of carbs. Half of that's from sugar. And then you'll have a cheat meal at the end of the day, something like burgers and fries. I try not to, even though you are a hard gainer and you're lean, I try not to have too much trash food with a bunch of saturated fat and cholesterol in it, because even though you're skinny, a lot of times skinny guys still have cardiovascular issues. I've seen tons of skinny guys that have skewed, horrible lipid profiles. So you have to be cognizant of that and aware of how your diet impacts your lipids and how your diet impacts your cardiovascular health. So that's the big thing that would be my concern with throwing too much trash food in there. I just don't think like things like ice cream, which really, if you look at ice cream, predominantly the majority of the calories come from fat. It's not even from the sugar, and it's not even good fats. I feel like those are just calories for the calories' sake. When you're eating a bunch of saturated fats and just trash fats, it really does not do anything to contribute to muscle, lean tissue gain. It's just making you fat. That's really it. So we want to push foods. I don't so much have a problem with burgers and fries as much, because it is, you're eating basically meat and potatoes at that point, with some extra fat. But I try not to make a regular habit of it. I'd prefer guys to eat clean food and just eat more of the clean food, and maybe get a couple higher calorie meals. And usually, like with my cheat meals, I do clean-ish cheat meals. Like I might go have a fattier steak and a potato. Occasionally I'll get burgers and fries, or do something like Thai food, or I'll get Mediterranean food. Those are kind of my go-to cheat meals. They're higher calorie, but still relatively clean food. So I may go have something like lamb and some rice, with lentil soup or something like that. So that, at the Mediterranean restaurant that's here close by, or kebabs or something like that, that's higher calorie but still decent quality food. I wouldn't be hammering the Ben and Jerry's and expect that to produce good physique results for you. I just don't. I can't rationalize in any way that would be productive for building a good physique. Next question. George Glampy, or Glapme, I think it's Glapme. Do you think there is a certain number of work sets on an exercise that makes it more productive, considering you have 1 to 3 reps in reserve versus spreading those work set out over multiple exercises? Say 4 sets on 2 exercises versus 2 sets over 4 exercises, the same muscle group. Yeah, I mean, I kind of have, I feel like too many exercises, you don't get in a groove. I don't really start getting a good pump from an exercise until probably the 3rd set or so. So I feel like I'm really starting to get in the groove and feel it and make that mind-muscle connection on the third set. I don't know that there's any science wrapped up in this, but this is just how I do it. I like to do 3 to 4 sets per exercise, occasionally more. I feel like once I get past four sets, I've kind of worn out the welcome on the exercise. So, for a body part, I'll do something like 2 or 3 different exercises, maybe 3 to 4 sets per exercise, not counting warm-up sets. I don't count warm-up sets, and these are working sets. That's typically how I do it. I find it most productive that way. And I think when you get too many exercises, you're just all over the place and you just don't perfect your form. You don't make a mind-muscle connection. You don't get a good pump. That's my 2 cents. That's how I prefer to do it. Now I will do A, B workouts. Like I do push, pull legs, and I'll have a push A and a push B where I do a different set of exercises on those workouts, just to get some variation in angles and things like that. So that's kind of how I break it up. All right, next question here. The Gym Monk. What uses does each pre-workout androgen have, and what does it do? I am on a first cycle for hypertrophy, and I want to add in a pre-workout androgen like dianabol, turinabol, anadrol, superdrol, or anavar. The reason for the addition is the additional 2 to 4 weeks of training and drug cycle with the intention of giving an extra bit of drive to set new PRs and get all the extra reps I can before I deload. I'll go back to it again. I think orals are saved for only when you need them. If you need to get past a plateau or if you're peaking for some sort of competition. They, as I've mentioned before, most of them have no additional beneficial effects, with the exception of maybe something like Anadrol for peaking for competition and Winstrol or Halotestin for contest prep. But those are only used in the last couple weeks before contest prep. So orals have all of the additional side effects and really not much additional benefit. And so when you're doing a cost versus benefit analysis of things, why would you use the thing that has a higher cost to your health with little to no additional benefit? To me, that makes 0 sense. You know, getting an extra rep or two on the bench press really is not going to benefit you much in the long run. It just isn't. You know, it serves your ego, but it doesn't do anything else. And for a first cycle, you don't need to do that anyway. You should just be running basic things for a first cycle. Don't overthink it. So many dudes overthink this shit. You know, first cycle should just be testosterone, in my opinion. You know, just run test, you know, for 12, 16 weeks. See what happens. Maybe push your dose up halfway through. Trust me, you'll get plenty out of that. And if you don't, then you're doing something else. Something else is wrong. Either your training's fucked up, or your diet's fucked up, or something else is going on, you know. So keep it simple. You don't need, you know, I like, while I have used orals pre-workout before, I'll admit to it, I really just don't find there's much additional benefit. And I never really noticed that much of a difference, to be honest with you anyway. And then you end up just fucking your lipids up, and your blood pressure goes through the roof. You know, especially during the workout when your blood pressure already gets really high anyway, and then you're adding additional stress to your cardiovascular system by popping an oral before a workout, probably drinking a pre-workout on top of it too. You know, so it's the double whammy to your cardiovascular system. I wouldn't do it. That's my 2 cents. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. If you want to get in contact with me about coaching or do a quick consultation call so I can unfuck what you're doing, my contact information is below. You can also check out the rates on my website at anabolicbodybuilding.com. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it.